Oh, cool. Well, real quick, let's go through what we've been through so far, Today, we're down here on step 7. We've been using the word recovery for each week. Step 1, week 1, we said, realize I'm not God. I admit that I'm not God. He is. I'm powerless to change the things that I deal with in my life. Week 2, we said, I earnestly believe that God exists. He is the higher power. Week 3, we said consciously choose. Because I believe that God is who He says He is, I'm going to make a conscious decision to commit my life to Christ. I'm no longer going to be in control. I'm no longer going to make the decisions. I'm going to depend on Him to do His will in my life. Week 4, we openly examined and confessed my faults. Week 4, we said, let's look at ourselves. What's wrong with us? What are we doing wrong? What's the mistakes we're making? Who are the people that we've hurt? So we openly examine and look at ourselves and say, God, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm all yours. Week 5, voluntarily submit to God. We say, God, I've tried it my way. It hasn't worked. What's your plan? What's your purpose for my life? And I voluntarily, willingly submit to your plan. And then week 6, we said evaluate all my relationships. Who are the people who have hurt us? Who are we still resenting and have bitterness towards? Who's living rent-free in our brain that we need to forgive? And then also, who's the people that we've hurt? Who do we need to reach out to and say, hey, I'm sorry that I hurt you. And then today, we're talking about relapse. Relapse, falling back into the self-defeating patterns. Now, as we get, when I first started looking at this early in the week, I'm just kind of looking at the steps, right? Like, okay, here's step 1, like let's make sure I'm doing that step 2, and then step 7, and so it's kind of like systematic for me as I'm looking at it and making sure that I'm kind of checking off the boxes. But throughout the past couple days, and then I found myself this morning as the group is working out there, and they're picking up the dumbbells, and they look like they're having a great time, and running down to the end and back. I couldn't help but just this past 20 minutes, even after looking at this week, the past 20 minutes, I couldn't help but like coming back to how important this step is to me. Like how this step has wrecked my life and how I've seen this step wreck the lives of so many people in my lives. Because you might think that when you begin making bad decisions and you kind of go down a wrong road, that and then at some point you kind of hit your lowest low, and maybe you come up out of that. And people may look at you and think, well, that has to be the worst, right? That has to be the worst. But I don't know about you, but when I look at my own life and I look at some people in my family's life, it wasn't the first time that they went down the wrong road and got help that was like the worst moments of their life. For me, I was younger, so this was like 34 years ago, and when I was 18, I gave my life to Christ, man. I was living for Him. Before that, I was a blackout drunk, getting high before school, passing out on the weekends, fighting, getting suspended all the time. I had stitches underneath my eyes, underneath my chin. I was a racist little punk, just starting riots in a black-white school. I mean, I was just an absolute mess. And my wrestling coach invited me to church, and I said yes. And 6 months later, I gave my life to Christ. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't even cuss, never said a word to any nothing. I mean, I just hugged people that hated me. I was annoying, in that way. But I went like 4 years and just living for God, man, and speaking at schools and at churches and everything. And then I took that one drink. I took one drink and it didn't stop forever. And listen, I thought I was bad before. But it was in that year and a half when I relapsed that I stand here today, like almost 56 years old, and I said, man, that was the worst year and a half of my life. That was bad. I mean, I messed up my life. I messed up so many other people's lives. To this day, people saw me like good and living for the Lord, and then they see me completely messed up. And I'm still 35 years later, I'm like just embarrassed about it all. And then I think about my mom's life and how my mom left when I was 6 months old. She was addicted to heroin, and she was in a mental institution, and somebody prayed with her, and somehow she got out. And when she got out, this was later on, I was like about 7 years old, and she came into my life, and for and all my life, my mom for like 2 years was amazing. I mean, she was amazing. We would go to her house on the weekends. She would take us camping. She would take us to the big swimming pool. She would take us out fishing. And she would always take us to church. We would sing songs and paint rocks. And being with my mom from like age 7 to 9 was like some of the most memorable, funnest times of my life. And then somewhere in there, my mom took that drink again. And for the rest of her life, and until I was at her house when she passed away, she was just the absolute most miserable person I've ever seen in my life. And I thought it was bad watching, but to read her diary and to see just how absolutely miserable she was. It's like just hard. And then to watch my sister and my brother like on top of the mountain, but then watch them go back and like just wreck their lives. And on the outside, it was the worst, the hardest. I can't tell you how many times I literally, and I hate to say this, but the reality is my brother, I just watched him get so bad that there were more than once that when he got bad, and then for a week or a month or so he would get good, and I would pray and just cry and cry. I would pray. I would say, God, just take him now. Like a car wreck, somebody that he hurt, like shooting. Like, God, just take him out now because he's doing good, and I don't want to see him relapse. I don't want to see him go bad again. I don't want to go through it again. And God, now he's not doing it like this week, this month. Like, just take him. Because I thought, man, I could go to a funeral and say, hey, you know what? Man, he went out on a good note, man. He was doing good. And then now, like next weekend, I'm going to see in the past few years, my brother's like giving his life to Christ, and he's just living again. And next week, he gets off parole and probation, which will be the first time like ever that he's not in prison or on parole or on probation or anything like that in like 20, 25 years. And so we're going to the God's football game, the Bengals, and and so the relapse thing, man, it's personal. It's personal for me. And so when I look out, I just want you to know that in so many circles, I know that we kind of hear this thing, well, relapse is inevitable. And I just want you to know that it is. It is preventable. You don't have the same God that got us out can keep us out. We don't ever have to go back. We don't ever have to go through the same thing. We don't have to make those same decisions that we once made. Listen, you can make it. Step 7 is the maintenance stage. It's all about maintaining. It's about going back to steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 every single day. Every single day. Not getting complacent about it. Not getting comfortable with it. But continuing to go back. The reality is, and that's why this step is in here, is that it does happen. And when it does, yes, there's grace. Yes, there's forgiveness. Yes, there's second chances. However, there's so many just consequences that we have to go through. So many consequences to ourselves and to the people that we love the most that get hurt. So I'm glad this is a big day today. glad that I look around and there's so many people, because I want us to leave here and know that through the power of God, you never have to go back. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be a part of your recovery. So let's not slip back into the old ways. And I think to prevent that, the first thing we have to look at is how it happens. How it happens. And I think the cool thing about today is that it's not like just some preacher like that's never experienced this stuff before and saying, okay, the book says, and this is what I've seen. This is what I've lived. This is the real life stuff. The big thing, number one, what do we look for? How do we see it coming? Complacency. When you get comfortable and start thinking that you can do it on your own. And I've seen this with all the people in my life, and I've seen it in my life. When you think, man, I've made it. I've arrived. I've been away from it long enough. I can do it now. And we forget that you didn't do it on your own before. You needed God, and God pulled you out. And somehow we kind of get far into the process and forget that. We forget how we got out in the first place. And listen, how you got out is what's going to keep you from getting back in and having to get out a second time. So don't get complacent. Don't get comfortable and ever come to the place where you think you can do it on your own. The last thing you want to say when somebody says, how you doing? Like, you got, and the last thing you want to say is, yeah, I got this. I got this. Whenever I hear somebody, no matter what it is, whether it's a marriage or whatever, I hear somebody say, like, man, them people that cheat on their spouses, man, they like losers. I never cheat on my spouse. And you get prideful, and I'll look at Polly and I'll be like, that's the ones that are going to do it. Because it's only by the grace of God and the power and strength of God who is in me that I'm not going back. It ain't my own strength. My own strength failed me. My own willpower failed me. And I got a lot of willpower. But I ain't got enough to not go back. I got to admit, back to step one, that I'm powerless over this stuff. Don't get complacent. Don't get comfortable. I'm 33 years into it now. I haven't touched a drop of anything in like 32 years, almost 32 and a half years. And I'll tell you right now, it's only by the grace of God. Only by the grace of God that I don't. It's not me. And then also confusion. If you ever get to a place in your recovery where you think it really wasn't that bad. When you get so far out of it, you look back and you're talking to somebody and you're like, yeah, man, 20 years ago, I wasn't that bad, but you better watch out. It's coming. That relapse is right around the corner. Don't forget, it was bad. You was bad. You made people mad. You hurt yourself, you hurt others. Don't lessen it. Don't get confused and think it wasn't that bad. Because as soon as you get confused and think it wasn't that bad, you think you can do whatever it was you was doing just a little bit. Just a little bit. For me, it was on the airplane. That little bottle was like that big. That big. I took that drink and I didn't stop. And it was just a little bit. Whatever it is, whether it's worry or codependency or perfectionism, whatever, don't get confused and think it wasn't that bad. And so, like, if I just do a little bit, it won't work. No. Your first step to going back is that little bit. My boys in my after school program I had from 6th grade to 12th grade, man, I poured into them at least once a week. I would tell them, listen, if you don't do it once, if you don't try it one time, like, you'll never have to worry about being addicted to it. You'll never have to worry about it controlling your life. You'll never have to worry about it putting you in jail. You'll never have to worry about it ruining your family. You'll never have to worry about it taking your job. If you just just don't do it. Don't try it. Don't see if you're strong enough. Don't taste it. Don't smell it. Not one. It's the one time. It's the first time that leads to all the others. Don't get confused that it wasn't that bad. It was. And if you forget, ask the people who experienced it with you. They'll never forget how bad it was. And then compromise. You start going back to places and people that you were tempted in. It's like a gambler saying, well, I'm just going to go to Vegas, this week just for the shows. No, you can't do it. You can't do it. Don't compromise. Don't get yourself into situations. Don't go back to that group. Don't go back to those people. Don't put yourself in those situations. No compromise. Listen, if I had to boil it all down to one word, I would say that the biggest cause for relapse that I've seen over the past 35 years, and really, I guess, my whole life, if I had to boil it down to one word, the biggest thing that I've seen to relapse is pride. Pride. It's pride. It was pride with my mom. It was pride with me. I thought I could take that drink. It was pride with my brother. It was pride with my sister. It's been pride with hundreds of people that I've worked with over the past 35 years. If I had to boil it all down in one way, shape, or form, it started with pride. Listen, come on, we might have to repeat this. If I don't stay humble, I'm going to stumble. Come on, say that with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. If I don't stay humble, I'm going to stumble. The first time you think, oh, I got this beat. First time you think, I can do that. First time you think, this won't bother me. First time you think, it won't hurt that bad. First time you think, nobody will know. First time you think, ain't nobody seeing me. Pride. If you don't stay humble, I could probably say I've seen this with 100% of the people that I've experienced relapse. Somewhere it starts with pride. Proverbs 16 verse 18 says, pride goes before destruction. You can just fill that in with relapse. Pride goes before relapse. Pride goes before I do it again. Pride goes before I do something dumb, before I make that decision. We have to remember that it is only by the grace of God that we do not go back. It's His strength. It's His power. It's Him in me and my dependence on Him that gives me the most amazing life. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. Like watching my brother this past year, like stay out of prison and like coming up on like being a free person. Like, man, I don't have any money, but like I'm going to go up there and see him, and hopefully now he can take me out to eat for the first time in 20 years. I'm counting on that. But like I can't explain to you the feeling. And for those of you who have been in addiction, listen, I hope that you see it in me, that you can comprehend the way that I'm lighting up because of my brother and sister, like being clean and being free and like experiencing life. Like they call me, they text me, they're smiling, they're happy, they're like telling me good things about their life and about their kids. And it's like, that's the greatest gift in the world. Listen, there are people in your lives, man, that are loving life right now because of you, because you're making good decisions, because you're smiling, they're smiling. And listen, it does something. And I want every one of us to just experience life to the fullest, man. I want to see you smile. I want to see you find out what God's purpose is for you. And listen, when you do, and you just take a step towards it, I'm telling you, you'll never be happier. You'll never be more fulfilled. You'll never experience more joy if you just seek Him. God, what do you have? And listen, He's got something for you. He's got a plan for your life. I don't care how much you've fallen. I don't care what you've done, who you've hurt, how you've hurt them, what's been done to you. God wants to use you. The same God that created the world, the same God that threw out the stars, put the planets in orbit and started spinning them at just the right angle, at just the right speed. The oxygen, everything is exactly perfect. If it was 1 degree off, if the oxygen level was 1 inch off, we couldn't live, we couldn't make it. And that same God lives inside of you. That's what I'm talking about. And he's got a plan and a purpose for your life. And listen, he can use you. Don't let anybody tell you that he can't. He can. And when you let him, you're talking about being fulfilled at the highest level that you can possibly be fulfilled at. Paul says this. Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 10, for this reason, I am happy when I have weaknesses. For this reason, I'm happy when I'm weak, because I'm weak. Because when I'm weak, then I am truly strong. See, we have this American version of, I can't show my weakness. I can't let my guard down. I got to be strong for myself, for others. And Paul says, no. You see, when you're strong, when you think you can do it, you think you can make it, then it's just you. But when I'm weak, listen, I don't know about you, but it's been the times in my life when I knew I couldn't make it. It's been the times in my life when I knew I wasn't going to get there, that I dropped on my knees. It's been the times in my life when my marriage was like, oh, God, I need some help. It's when I was weak that I got down and I said, God, I can't do it. And sometimes that's exactly where God wants to get us, to the place where we realize that I'm not God. He's way stronger than I am. And when I'm weak, that's when I depend on him even more. And now it's not my willpower, it's not my strength. I've realized, I've admitted how weak I am, and God, I can only depend on you. That whole thing, like people post these little memes like, God will never give you more than you can handle. That is way not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible. Because the truth is, God's going to give you more than you can handle, so you realize how weak you are, so you'll cry out to him and count on his strength to get you through. That's your greatest moments, is when you give more than you can handle. Because then you realize that he's got you. He's got you. To never go back, to prevent relapse, we need to evaluate some important areas of our lives. And these seem simple, but these are important. And one is physical, and that's a huge part of Move Daytona. It's the physical piece of it. And that's why so many people in recovery are in CrossFits all throughout the world. Because this is a huge part to prevent relapse. Are you sleeping good? Listen, you can't just stay up all night, every night. You know, like you was 18 years old. And then get up early, go to work. You got to get sleep. Sleep is important. New studies have come out the past few years that tell you sleep is more important than water. We've got to grow up our whole life. You know, water is the most important. We need it. Sleep is more important even than water. And then eating and exercising. So taking care physically. Not just once a week, you know, Move Daytona, we got to kind of say it like church. Like, don't just come to church once a week. You know, don't just exercise on Sunday. Get out, walk. Walking is amazing for you. And then start walking and jogging. And then start doing other things. But you got to sleep good, you got to eat good, you got to exercise. And then emotionally, are you allowing your real feelings to focus? You're allowing your real feelings to focus. When people talk to you and things are going on, listen, yeah, that's good. Polly and I went to a marriage seminar like 4 hours away one time in Oregon, and we've been married 6 years, and the first 6 or 7 years, it was rough. Now, I've been real I like it after that, but the first 6 or 7 years, it was rough. And this was at the highlight, because we got married, we lived in Polly's hometown, so I could be a workaholic and not be missed, because she had her sister, she had her parents, she had everybody. And so I just worked from early morning till late at night. And then we moved to Oregon, 2,500 miles away, and it was just me and her. And I didn't realize how much I was gone. And I stayed gone. And so we're going to this marriage seminar, 3-4 hours away, and it was terrible. Man, we just fought the whole weekend, like a 3-day weekend marriage seminar. That dude like saying blah, 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 and then we leave, and she'd be like, how come you ain't blah, 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 how come you ain't blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm talking like 3 days out of town, no sex. Like, it was terrible. You know, I mean, you think you're going to a marriage conference, like, it's a good weekend. You're going to get lucky somewhere in there. And no. We're driving home, going down the highway, and at this point in my life, I never let any feelings out. Never. I never got mad at her, never threw things. I dodged a few things, but I didn't throw nothing. And I never hollered, really, never really raised my voice at her, 6 years. Never, like, I let her, do her little thing. And, yes, dear, kind of all that. 6 years, boy, on the way home from this marriage conference, she was let me having in the driver's seat. We're going down, what's that, I-4? I-5. We're going down I-5. We're going like 75 miles an hour. And I finally, my first time in 6 years, I lost it. I stopped going 80 miles an hour. I started beating that steering wheel. I bet the thing falls apart, like I'm still trying to drive, and I'm yelling, and then the horns like broke. And man, I started beating it even more. Well, I was like, I pulled off the side, we're gonna pull over to a gas station. We pull over to a gas station, it's kind of cold outside, so the windows are all steamed up. I am fuming, man. I let 6 years out. My horn is still blowing. Somebody knocks on the window of the driver's side. I pull the window down, and I'm furious, beating on things. And here, we're 3 hours away from our church, and the person knocking on the window is somebody from my church, where I'm like pastoring at the time. And all we remember is I rolled the window down, and they said, hey, we saw your car swerving and stuff, like, is everything okay? And I just remember saying, yeah, it's all good. And yeah, we stopped though, just got a little drink. Shh. And so for 6 years, I didn't allow my real feelings to come out. And they probably really didn't either. We loved each other. We wanted it to work. We were committed to like staying together. And we just, neither one of us ever, our whole life, grew up seeing like how it was done in a healthy way. So it took a while to figure that out. But what is it in your life? Listen, be honest where you are. Be honest where you are. There's been times like the past 10 years, especially as I get more and more kind of away, I'm 32 years clean and stuff. And like I said, my willpower is so strong and all that. And so there's been several times where I've thought like, hey, I can go out to this UFC fight, hang out. Like I can drink a beer now in 32 years. Like it's not gonna, like I'm cool, And then like I immediately think like it is not worth the risk. Because of my family history and my history of addiction and all that stuff. And so for me, I always go back. It helps me to think, first, I'm weak. I'm not as strong as I think I am when I'm thinking like stupid like that. A little confused, got a little complacent. And so, I forget what I was saying, but I don't want to take that risk. And so there's times where I've had to be honest, be like, I've shared with Polly those times, like, man, I've thought about like just drinking socially again. And then, she'd be like, well, did you ever drink socially? Well, not really. I've never had a social drink in my life. It was all or nothing. So physically, take care of your physical body. Emotionally, and then relationally, are you at peace with everyone? Evaluate all your relationships. Listen, that's constant. That's constant. I mean, people hurt you, and then you also hurt people. And so constantly evaluate your relationships. It doesn't mean that you get back and are best friends with people that hurt you or that you just don't jive with anymore. But you're at peace with it. Like, you forgive them, you ask them to forgive you. Is anyone living rent-free in your mind? That's constant. That's almost weekly, if not monthly, like for sure, as you get longer into it. And then spiritually, so physically, emotionally, relationally, stay in check. And then lastly, spiritually, are you relying on God? Are you relying on God? You're just beginning over time to be 24/7 relying on Him. Are you reading the Bible? Are you talking to Him and just praying? Just having daily conversations. Not just before I go to bed. That's great, and before I eat. Those are great triggers to remind me to pray, but just through the day. Just through the day, where you begin to rely on God. And listen, that's going to look different for everybody. If I was to compare myself to Polly, I'd be like a spiritual loser. Like, just not even close. I mean, because I just admire her, but we've learned that the way that we spend time with God also is like a personality thing, too. So she'll sit down and she'll read forever, and man, she'll write stuff like, I don't know how she writes so much. I can't even write a sentence, but she just writes forever and just listens. Like, she'll just sit there and this little music is going on. It's like telling her. And I'm like, I got to go. I got to pick something up, man. I got to go run down the street, something. And so, listen, have I read my Bible every day? Not even close. Not even close. Not as much as I want to, really. Have I prayed every day? I've prayed a lot. I've prayed many days where I prayed somewhere through the day, but probably not. I'm sure there's been days where, I just got up and went through and went to bed and went to sleep. But you become reliant on Him. So whether I read my Bible that day or whether I prayed, that we get so intentional to look to Him and to focus on Him and to depend on Him that we just become reliant in our everyday life in all things. So listen, evaluate these areas throughout each day. Evaluate these areas at the end of each week. And then one of the great things of many about the Move Recovery Group that meets every other week is that we can evaluate these things with each other. That we can have some accountability. We get to talk, and everybody's got different things, different stuff. Everybody's got something big, but it's different. We get to talk about that every other week. How was the past 2 weeks? We get to be honest. That way we get to be real and share our real emotions. How much time have you spent with God? We get to talk in that small group. We get to open up and talk and have accountability and encouragement. And so it's an awesome group. It's an awesome group every other Monday night. Bring your friends, bring your people. The cool thing about it is nobody can say, well, that's not for me. Because if you talk to somebody and you invite them and they say, oh, no, man, that's not for me. Well, you can tell them that we also deal with pride. And so they might want to come too. But listen, you don't have to relapse. You don't have to go back. You don't have to stay in that crazy cycle. I'm good, I mess up. I'm crazy, I'm messing up other people. I'm good, I mess up other people. You can get out of that crazy cycle. Stop depending on yourself and make sure that you humbly depend on God. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for getting us in here. Thank you for reminding us that you are all powerful, that you love us so much. You created us. You have a purpose and a plan for us. You can use our pain for purpose. You can use our mess for ministry. And as many people as maybe we've hurt, God, we can help now. Multiply by thousands. So God, this morning, we just all surrender to you. And humbly say that we need you. From this day forward, God, we depend on you more than ourselves. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Hey, look at somebody, man. Before you leave, you got to tell at least 2 people, stay humble so you don't stumble. All right, stay humble so you don't stumble. Tell them.